I don't know what they're smoking over there at Princeton.
I'm white, and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. If I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do the show live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific right here on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. Head on over to echoplexmedia.com. Check out everything over there, including the Defamation Times. We've got a couple articles by Professor Q. That is an actual professor who writes articles for our blog for some odd reason. Also, the support page there. You can support this project in many ways. Swag Shop's the best, but whatever. I'm producer Dave, and you can find me on Grindr. I don't have any sound from you.
Is that better?
Yeah, I'd like a little more sound from you.
Okay, sorry about that. How's that? Is that good?
We're the ultimate audio nerds.
I'm surprised you weren't hearing your own self back, because that's how I had it set up just now. My bad.
Well, whatever. You would have seen some existential crisis happening if I was hearing myself back, because I cannot talk. I cannot. If I'm hearing myself back with the delay, I just shut up. So if anybody, if like you wanted me to stop talking at a party or whatever, if you had a machine that could just give me back exactly what I was saying with like a quarter-second delay, I would just stop talking at a party.
That is something that singers have to like learn to work through, because singers will often hear themselves back like with a quarter-second delay.
In a big venue, maybe, yeah.
But yeah, so now that you can hear me, I'm HK Perrin. You can find me on Mastodon at hperrin at port87.social. We have a Mastodon instance. It's called port87.social. You should come join it. port87.social.
And with mastodon.lol about to go down, they're about to take that one down.
Oh, no.
So we're a pretty good landing place. We have plenty of capacity left on the server, and easy to understand rules, and the server still runs super quick. So,
oh yeah, like we were at 50% capacity when it was just you and me, and we've gained like 45, 50 users around there. We're at like 51% capacity.
Right, but that's because everybody's not on. I bet if everybody
server load, I mean,
I bet if everybody was on at the same time, we'd be like, uh-oh.
Probably not. Mastodon's server load is pretty small. That's like not a super expensive server. It cost me about like $120 a month to run it. So that's a like fairly small server. And it runs just fine.
Well, a couple quick announcements. Next week, we're going to be doing, we're going to have Marcus Homozygote back on because Sam Harris had some proponents of the lab leak theory on his podcast. Oh, we would have done that this week, but I thought it would be better if we waited until Marcus was available for that because, he knows what the fuck he's talking about on those kinds of things more than we do. Also, next week, the show will go up early because on Monday, I'll be interviewing Ina, aka Nice Mangoes. And I'll be going ahead and running that before the podcast. So everybody will be able to check that out. If anybody's a longtime fan of the Intellectual Dollar Tree, the first episode of the Intellectual Dollar Tree, we went over Ina's conversation with Sam Harris. So I expect my discussion with her to be like a bunch of high fives and glad handing and y'all will get the patrons version of that if you listen live. And well, y'all get the patrons version of that because I like to cut interviews short, about 45 minutes, maybe an hour if it's interesting, but I don't like going super long. And I have a feeling her and I will not be done talking after 45 minutes. And check out the Polite Conversations podcast. Ina does great work. And we were supposed to talk to her over the summer, but she had a non-insignificant family emergency, and we were running her GoFundMe on here, and I hope that some of you helped contribute to that, and I'm glad that her family is doing better, and I'm just super stoked to talk to her. Also, I think next week I'll have a big fucking announcement as far as a get that we're going to have. Person with the same first name as me, writes for science-based medicine. Maybe you already guessed who it is, but if you did, don't say anything because I haven't ironed it all out. But that's a huge get, and that'll also be on the Intellectual Dollar Tree feed probably mid-March. One more announcement: Local Love and the Down Ballot. That last night was the last night for Local Tuesday. Down Ballot is moving to Friday before Conspiracy Bingo, and Local Love. The format's completely changing. We're not sure what we're doing with it. But it probably won't be a live show anymore. And, but the podcast will live on and we'll still have artists and all that stuff. You'll just have to find it on YouTube and the podcast feed. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of changes going on. I'm also working on a brand new, overlay for all of our shows because this one's getting a little stale. So we'll be looking a little bit, different in the future here. And, I never do this and I should be doing this every show. Shout out to Steve Seguin, who does Video Ninja, brings in all of my remote guests and allows us to have just a far and away better remote setup than most people. So
as a web developer, I am super impressed with Video Ninja.
Yeah. Maybe we should do a whole how the tech are you about Video Ninja and try to get Steve to pop on and talk to us a little bit.
That would be awesome.
He's super nice. So
like this is a very impressive piece of software. I'm consistently impressed with it, and like every time I learn a new feature about it, it's like, holy shit, how the hell did he even do that?
And the greatest thing about it is like it just gets out of your way once you're using it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not, I don't have to touch it except to like add people.
Yeah. Did you know that you can actually, so I don't know how he did this, but he made it possible so that you can use a trained AI model to detect your like you in the foreground and blur your background, just like Zoom does it, except it does it in the back in your browser.
Oh yeah, I don't
like that. It's like an AI model that's running in your browser.
Well, people aren't
Very
here for
impressive.
a tech show or for announcements, but we do have some. I do like to every once in a while make sure to mention that and bring people because this is our most popular pod, and giving people news about what else is going on around here is really good. Oh, one more, the middle of March on a Catterday, we're doing a special event with the Roughies where we're going to be doing a giveaway via Fourth Wall. We're going to be giving away a digital copy of their album that doesn't come out till April 1st, probably up to 5 copies. That'll include all the artwork with the album, and it'll be just sent to you in your email. And we'll have a little special live performance by Patty Kay, and I'm just really looking forward to that. We may, if we have time, also give away a couple of exclusive Roughies Local Love t-shirts. If we can get that going, we may be able to do that. That's the timing on that is a little rough because we want to make sure they look right, and I'm not sure if we can get that going, but we'll be giving away the album. That'll be Operation Catterday. You can follow us on Twitter or just always watch Catterday. It'll be like the 11th or the the 11th or the 18th, I believe. So people will be able to get that early, and you'll get not only the MP3s but the 24-bit wave masters of all of their songs if you're an audiophile type. Now on to the content. HK,
Yes.
does this person, have you seen this before?
No, I have not.
So I want to show everybody. So I think people who have been here late might have seen this before. This is this guy's website. This guy's name is Tyler Goldstein, and he has a theory of everything. And look at this fucking diagram. Like, look at this stuff. If you're listening to the pod, I'll try to remember to include this in the show notes. But like, this is his theory of everything.
I understand a lot of the words that are on this page. But the order that they're in is confusing me.
That's all right. He's going to clear it up in his interview with somebody I've never heard of. James Suris, The Sentient, Singularity Theory, God, Meaning, and Finding the Fundamental. You're not going to fuck. This is fucking amazing.
Which one is the one with the theory?
I think they both have their own theory of everything, but the guy on the right, Tyler Goldstein, is the guy whose amazing drawing I just showed you.
Okay.
Just last week again. I'm sorry, the internet cut out here and everything. There was no electricity.
No worries.
Yeah. So we had discussed to get right into it. We had discussed something during one of your Thursday chats, and what we had seemed to have outlined was 6 components that are required for a theory of everything.
No.
And, I really
instead of 12 rules, it's 6 components for a theory of everything. First one is that you're out of your fucking mind.
really enjoyed those 6 things. I've been thinking about that. So we had talked about the what, the who, the how, the why, the when, and the where.
So that's who, what, where, why, when, how, and have you lost your mind?
I'd like to explore that a little bit, but
It's like the time
before
cube.
I do that, I was just wondering if you
Do you remember the time cube?
I do. That was amazing.
Introduce your theory in a
I'm hoping that this is
more
just as
general,
good as the time cube.
resumed way, if possible.
Yeah. Are we live? Just checking.
Sure, yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So my name is Tyler Goldstein. I am I guess I don't like the term creator, but the generator, I guess, of like the theory of sentient singularity theory, and it is an attempt at a fundamental metaphysical framework for reality. But mainly, if you break that really down, it's a fundamental framework for cosmology and for the dimensions of mind, essentially, which are technically the same things, but just looked at two different.
Wait, cosmology and the dimension of
pattern is the
minds?
same.
Which are technically the same.
thing?
They're technically the same thing, but
Cosmology is on a scale much larger than well, I guess I don't know. You can, how do you define mind? Because to me, a mind is something that emerges out of a brain.
yeah, me too. It's an emergent property of your brain, your consciousness,
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah. So without, a brain, there is no mind, and a mind is completely enclosed in a brain. And that is such a smaller scale than cosmology. So I'm very interested to hear, like, does he think that like gravity plays a huge role in our minds?
Listen, I know that cosmology is bigger than a galaxy, but this shit is at least galaxy brain sized.
Like if I flip myself upside down, I've inverted where the force of gravity is active, or the direction that the force of gravity is acting upon me, right?
Yes.
So if cosmology and minds were the same thing, wouldn't that have some tangible effect on my mind? I mean, I guess I'll get like a head rush, but like,
How do you know that the universe is not also flipped?
it would be difficult to determine whether it was.
Fair enough.
And That did not start though as an attempt to do that. This has been an ongoing process that started originally many years ago, probably about 5 years ago, maybe 6 at this point, with a revelation that we were doomed due to technology, and that our wisdom was decreasing, but our technological ability was increasing. And I realized
also interesting. How do you define wisdom then?
Forever. And I tried to figure out what could change the game a bit. And the only thing that I could think of was what I call a technological sentience, which is really what most people call artificial general intelligence, which is, I don't like the term, but that's what they call it.
Something's going on with their audio. It's pretty bad.
In order to figure out whether or not this would, continue to seal our doom or essentially be our salvation, I wanted to find out its inevitable political relationship with humanity. And it was Elon Musk that actually kind of inspired me to start looking at this. And he had said that that the ideal would be for it to value human freedom of action. And I wanted to see...
Of course, this guy's a Musk stan.
And you know how, like, this is just like if Eric Weinstein wasn't rich, right?
I don't know. Eric Weinstein, I think he might be smarter than this guy. Eric Weinstein, he uses the right words. He's just describing things that don't exist. Whereas this guy isn't even using the right words. Like, he's comparing things that just aren't similar at all.
Is it
like, how did we get from a theory of everything to like artificial general intelligence?
I don't know.
So I started investigating what it takes to be self-aware, and
you should do a little more investigation on that one, Tyler. I think that's where you should that should be the focus of your work for a while, my friend. This guy blocked me on Twitter because he would post something and then I'd just post one of his wacky ass diagrams under whatever he posted. And he was like, well, you're not being very nice. And I'm like, this is your work. I'm just helping you promote it. He got pissed off. I invited him on the show and then he blocked me.
I would love to interview this guy. It would be so great.
You'd have to do it from a point of view like you were playing along or it wouldn't be funny, right?
Maybe I would like. Do you think it would be too much to just ask him questions of like, okay, so this experiment has this result. How does your theory explain this result?
He would hang up.
Probably.
He'd be like, you've come in bad faith.
Like, if his theory is a theory of everything, it should be able to explain all experimental results, right? Especially experimental results in the realm of like cosmology and particle physics. The two big ends where we're like, still have a lot of things to discover. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that, first of all, I'm fairly confident this guy doesn't have a background in the sciences at all. And so like your question, the kinds of questions you think you would ask wouldn't really be that interesting.
Man, I would bet $1 million that you're right. He does not have a background in science.
I mean, I don't either, but I mean, I'm not out there telling you I fucking unified physics or whatever.
I mean, I don't have a background in like physics. I have a background in computer science, but I'm pretty sure I know a lot more about science than this guy does. So this is going to be real fun.
Self-awareness, what is consciousness? And the models that I started to make ended up lining up with physics and many things in biology and chemistry.
Oh, really?
Much everywhere that
I'm so excited to hear.
Biology even. And it motivated me to start this project, and I started continuing to make models. And then I did not try and...
So wait, when he says models...
Everything that was my
Does he mean the little graphs that he makes?
I think so, yes. I think he means
okay. Because that is not a scientific model.
It's barely a drawing.
I mean, when we're talking about physics, a scientific model is pretty much always a set of equations that describe reality.
Right, but his looks like a quilt.
Yeah, so I'm fairly certain that any physicist, even like a high school physics student would be able to tell that what he was doing was not physics.
To do an experiment, and I wanted to join up and work with people who are already in the space, like Clea Irwin or Eric Weinstein or Stephen Wolf or something like that, and eventually get this experiment done that I'm working on. And then I eventually realized that there was.
I would love to see Eric Weinstein spend an hour just talking down to this guy, being like, "Your fake model of physics is." It's not even my fake model. Like Eric Weinstein would just he would make this guy cry because he's one of this guy's idols, and this guy has a competing theory of everything.
I think Eric would speak to him exactly like Sabina spoke to Eric.
Yeah.
Theories of everything, and that none of them were much. They were all had the same basic implications, and so how do you?
Gee, I wonder why.
To go with one, at least to start with one, and I realized that none of the ones that I saw had the name that I thought described the fundamental nature and fundamental structure of reality, and I thought that was an essential thing. So that's how Sentient Singularity theory as a name was created for the framework that I've been working on, but that wasn't the original intention.
Okay.
Whoa, that was the universe flying by.
To resume your theory one more time, but in a statement. So if you could tell me what sentient singularity theory, what is it, and how did it come about in one statement?
I mean, he just tried to do that, I think.
Yeah, and none of it made sense.
Well, how sentient singularity theory came about was
this is the much less interesting part.
Investigation of what is self-awareness and consciousness, and trying to model the different components of it, and then
okay. Get to what it is. That's what we care about.
Everywhere else that I, had looked, which makes sense, and essentially, what sentient singularity theory main premise is that existence is a singularity of sentience that is, or a sentient being is another way of saying that is creating additional sentient singularities or sentient beings within itself according to a specific pattern that I lay out in my framework.
Oh, Scientology.
So,
can you pause it and let me break this down a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead. Good luck.
He thinks that the universe itself is sentient. Like, okay, that's fine. That's fine to think that. But what is his evidence for sentience? Because as far as we know, sentience requires specific things. And those things aren't the universe. Hold on, that didn't make sense. Those things in their entirety aren't the universe. So, in other words, what I'm saying is sentience requires something akin to a brain, some physical system that can respond to outside stimuli using some sort of information processing system, right? You and I would agree everything that is sentient meets at least that criteria, right?
Everything we know of that is sentient, sure.
Yes. Yeah, so he's purporting that either that definition of sentience is true and that definition fits the universe, or there's some other definition of sentience that includes the universe.
kind of comes up with some implications, which is you've used certain words like existence, sentience. So can you define those?
Yeah, by existence, I mean everything. I mean, I don't even want to say everything. I mean all that exists.
But that's, you just defined the word with its own self. It's like a person is a person. It's everyone that's a person is a person. That's
Personhood is the state of being a person. It's like, okay, cool.
And by sentience, I mean self-aware and feeling. Having not, I don't even want to say having feelings. It's more specific than saying sentient beings have feelings. Is to say sentient beings feel is like, so a sentient being.
So what does he mean by feel? Does that mean like they respond to outside stimuli?
But the emphasis with the term sentience, and this is why I chose it, is that it is on feelings and feeling. And that, I think, is a critical component of this. The next closest theory that has the name that I think is that most closely aligns with the fundamental nature and structure of reality would be Donald Hoffman's conscious agent theory, which is very similar to sentient, singularity theory. They're basically saying, self-aware being theory is really what they're kind of saying. But conscious, I try and avoid using the word consciousness.
These guys need the wear headphones during your interview theory.
Yes, they do. So yeah, he does have a different definition of sentience than I do. I mean, what I gave wasn't a definition, it was a criteria. So like there's additional things on top of that. But what I think he means by a being that has feelings, I think he means that it responds to outside stimuli.
He doesn't just mean a being that gets sad when you make fun of its theory of everything.
I mean, he could mean emotions, which are different than feelings. Feelings is like I can feel, I can feel warm because I'm in a warm environment, or I can feel a table because I'm touching a table. Whereas emotions are like, I'm happy because my needs are met. Is that what he means? Does
I don't
he think
know.
The universe has some sort of need. Like, does the universe ever need to go to the bathroom?
I don't know. I feel like you and I are definitely approaching this with a different amount of seriousness. I just feel like I am not prepared to approach this with the seriousness that you seem to be prepared to approach this with.
I want to approach it with even more seriousness as this interview goes on.
Because it's so.
I'm very interested to hear what his idea of a singularity is.
I'm conscious of that, or you could say I'm a consciousness, and what is consciousness? People think it means thinking, but sentience, the emphasis is on feeling, and that is the fundamental level of consciousness, I believe. So I think sentience is it's just a more specific term. It's not that consciousness is wrong, but
wait, what was the question again?
Sentience is more specific and more specifically fundamental too.
Okay, so now we can start to unpack your theory a little bit more, and referring back to what we had talked about, the what and the who, and then we had the how, the why, and then we had the when and the where. So let's start with the what. So you sort of kind of explained what we're talking about, which is fundamental reality. Mm-hmm. And you've defined the underlying terms, sentience and existence. So
did we?
Now how does that emerge, or how does it exist?
So sentience, I think this is a great way of breaking down anything. By the way, those 6 fundamental questions is a great way of doing that. But
I mean, who, what, where, why, and when? Do you mean like the thing that you get taught your first day at J school? Like the thing that just any news article is supposed to tell you is who, what, where, why, and when? Possibly how? Oh, wow. That's a great, you know what, James? You fucking really cracked the code, James. Thanks. You gave me a great framework for explaining this to you. I'm really glad you figured those questions out. My God.
Those are the questions, right?
Yeah, it's like if you're doing like a news article, those are the questions you're supposed to endeavor to answer.
I mean, there are no more questions than that. Those are all the question words.
So
I guess maybe like wherefore, but that just means why.
That I believe that sentience is an intrinsic component to existence. It's not something that happened. It's something that just is, because it's the only way that it could be. And why I believe that is that if existence is all that exists, and there is no non-existence truly. I mean, I get we can, as a concept, it exists, but most truly, no, it does not exist.
But then wait, now you're talking. Now you're just disproved your own fucking thing.
System that contains information, and any information inside of an enclosed system is self-referencing. So if you think about like a string
That's convenient.
of information, like a loop, and that information is going around and around and around in a loop, like a ring, it's referencing itself, which is self-awareness. And so I believe...
All right, so self-referential means information going around in a loop, around and around and around in a loop.
I've had many conversations like that. I don't think I fucking solved the universe with any of them.
I don't think that's what self-referential means. But I guess we'll go with his definition for this interview.
Lady B in chat is like, is anyone confused by what he's saying? Yes, Lady B.
Yes, we are all confused.
Yes. Yes.
What he is saying does not make any sense.
And like I said before, HK is endeavoring to try to make sense of it, and I am endeavoring to make fun of this guy. So those are actually the two states of consciousness that are allowed right now.
I feel like trying to make sense of it is essentially the same thing as making fun of it.
Existence has always been self-aware and could not be. Now, how God...
That is an interesting hypothesis. I wonder what he could use to test that hypothesis. It sounds to me like it's non-falsifiable, like anything that you would tell him. For example, there was a time when the universe was so small that essentially the entire universe existed in one point. So how could that possibly be sentient? Like an assload of matter existing in one point in space. How could that be sentient?
I just also think that, like, I have a computer mouse in front of me and I'm pretty sure it exists, and I don't think it is sentient.
But like even like, okay, let's go forward. Let's go like after the epoch of inflation to the time where the universe was a relatively uniform distribution of something you could describe as a plasma. You know, before the universe became transparent, when it was this hot plasma, before like atoms formed. Does that make sense? There weren't really atoms at the time. There were things you could, I guess, call atoms. At a certain point, protons started to exist, and those, you can call a single proton an atom, but that's not really what I mean. How does that, like, that is essentially like saying the core of the sun is sentient.
So just real quick, I want to just drop something in here that might make you think about what you just said. I think this guy's a creationist, like a young earth creationist.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think he believes in the thing that you just described.
Okay, so he does not believe in the Big Bang Theory.
Right. I don't believe so.
Okay. I mean, that makes his theory, his quote theory unquote, a lot less immediately falsifiable. It takes one more step to falsify it.
This is by just, this is a metaphor, obviously. So I know that, there's if there's all kinds of metaphors. Tom Campbell talks about partitioning of consciousness, so like a partition of a hard drive or something like that, and I think that makes sense. And
Do you think a hard drive's conscious?
to be even more technical,
It spins around and around and has information.
Tying a knot.
Therefore, it's self-referential.
If you're a string of information that's a loop that can
I mean, if you
tie a
create
knot
a
in itself,
symlink on your file
to create
system,
additional
that's
loops
self-referential, right?
within itself. And so in sentient singularity theory, the foundation of the models is what I call the 4 primary perspectives. And this was kind of the main discovery, I guess you could say, that led to my ability to do the rest of the work. And this was very early on. This had before I had any physics or intentionally metaphysical aspirations or anything like that. I just was trying to understand artificial general intelligence. But those 4
He's going about it wrong.
Are inside, outside, separate, and oneness. And they are co-defining of each other and codependent of each other. So inside means separate and oneness. Outside means separate from oneness.
Like literally, how is this any different than some of those Scientology videos we watch about like beingness and knowingness and fucking the you know what I'm talking about?
I would say it is different in that he is not as charismatic
As L. Ron Hubbard?
Yeah,
probably not.
Oneness is inside and outside of separateness, and and separateness is defined by the others as well. So they're all co-defining. I have the model on my website that shows the definitions of each and how each one defines each other. So
you know how torture doesn't really get people to tell you the truth? I feel like making somebody that you've captured sit and listen to this guy, they would probably tell you the truth just to get this guy to shut up.
You can have like inness, is that what he called it? You can have inness without outness. Arguably the universe contains inness and does not have outness. The state of being outside of the universe, at least to us, seems impossible. So
when we define the universe as literally everything, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All space and time and matter, yeah.
Yeah. Being outside of that is impossible. So how would he explain that?
It means is that awareness of one means you're aware of all the rest. So if you're aware of what's outside of you, then you are aware of what's inside of you and what is separate from you and what is one.
That's absolutely not true.
Just intrinsically, you can't be aware.
You can be aware of what's outside of you without being aware of what's inside of you.
Absolutely true. You could see a tree and not know that you have a liver.
Yep. In fact, I have very rarely seen the inside of me. Basically, only whenever I get like an X-ray or a CT scan or something.
Right. These are generally not things that you. These are generally not results of happy times or things that you're glad are happening.
Yes. Yeah. If you become acutely aware of what's inside of you, it's generally because something is very wrong.
Without being aware of what's one with you, and you can't be aware of what's separate and one with you without being aware of what's inside and outside of you. So what these 4 primary perspectives allow for is for
it sounds like he just had like a really nice like
relationships that transcend a relativistic or spectrum like state. So the like speed or strength or size or brightness or any of these, bigger than, stronger than, faster than,
harder,
these
better,
are relativistic
faster,
relationships. That's what I mean by that. Is they what is a big house? What
it's
is
the jail?
What is a small house? What is
yes, that is the big house.
It depends on what you're comparing it to.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you there because now you're starting to get, I think, into the when and where relativism.
Okay. Are you sure?
He's just talking about language. Like, yes, a fast car is not as fast as a fast plane. That's just language.
I think is a good segue into the
that has nothing to do with like physics, and I don't know how you can even fucking include that in a theory of everything.
So we
Okay.
talked about the what, and then we discussed the how, which I think is a good segue into the who, because earlier you used the word God. Now,
The World Health
maybe
Organization?
a two-part question. One, do you equate the term God with sentience? And if yes, then yes. If no, then what is God? And the who, we had discussed that in one of our chats a couple weeks ago, that you believe that
The
identity
whom.
is important. So we talked about the what, but it's also important to talk about the who, to attach an identity. So
Yep, I agree.
who is reality in a way, or what is the identity that you're talking about?
Who is
I would
reality?
say that God is sentience, but
Who is reality,
God
and
is-
when is this light bulb?
the term God, the way that I use it is I use that term for the uncreated sentience, the uncreated creator of the universe.
Yeah, that really sounds like Scientology
The
now.
highest being.
That just
is
sounds
a
like,
sentient being. I
like
believe
Christian
that existence
apologetics.
is a single sentient being. I didn't always believe that. I was a self-described atheist till I was 24, and but this work led me to change my opinion on it.
Oh, this guy was probably the most insufferable fucking atheist too. My God.
I don't think so. I don't think he was ever what we would describe as an atheist.
Oh, I believe him that he was an atheist. I think he was like the actually guy atheist who might even have tried to do street epistemology with that weird fuck Aaron Ra. That's the kind of atheist I think this guy was.
I don't think I agree with you on that.
Well, we can never know.
Yeah, true.
Dramatically, but
I mean, he
I
called
would say
himself
that
a
that is
self-described
who
atheist.
God is
So, like, was he actually an atheist or no?
It's that the totality of it, but also the creator of all the multiplicity of sentience that exists. You and me, and the universe
So-
that we're in.
So then, does that mean that the what and the who are interchangeable? So when you say sentience and when you say God and they're interchangeable, it's just two facets of the same thing, or?
No, because I mean, in a way, there's overlap, but I think that the who, in this case specifically, it's important to define what their relationship is with us. That's kind of how we understand who God is not just by understanding what God is, but who God is to us. He is the creator of multiplicity of sentience. He is the creator of everyone that we know and everyone that is except for himself. And God doesn't have a creator.
Was God not powerful enough to create himself?
Intrinsically, what happens when you have information in an enclosed system like existence. So, but every other sentient being comes from this one sentient being, and that relationship is important to defining who God is, I believe, because it tells us what our relationship is with, I'll say him, even though God is kind of genderless, but
Well, that's pretty woke.
God is above us in a hierarchy. So, is it also not, he's more of an active consciousness than a reactive consciousness. So I would say that referring to him as masculine is probably more.
I would be really
Whoa,
interested
hold
to
on.
know. So, I mean, I don't think that this guy does believe in evolution, but I would be interested to know if I were to describe the process of evolution that led to animals like humans. I would ask him to say where he thinks sentience arose.
Okay, check this out. You started talking in the middle of him saying just some galaxy brain shit. Watch this.
Okay.
He's more of an active consciousness than a reactive consciousness. So I would say that referring to him as masculine is probably more of a accurate in describing his relationship with us. It's not about being accurate in describing his gender necessarily.
So men are active consciousnesses and women are reactive conscious. Again, that's just fucking, that sounds totally like Scientology, but also what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, sexist. Sexist
Yes.
is the word I'm looking for.
Yes. He's trying desperately to not seem sexist while saying something very sexist.
Right. It's some Jordan Peterson shit, basically, where, or maybe it's men are from Mars and women are from Venus. I don't know where he got this shit from. Some airport book, maybe.
But it's accurate in describing how we relate to God. And I think that relationship is how we define who God is, I think, or know who God is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so you're talking about us and the multiplicity of sentient beings that God creates. So what do you include in that sentience? If we are sentient, you're referring to human beings, but do you include animals? Do you include inanimate matter in this sort of panpsychist fashion?
Good question.
How do you define multiplicity of sentience?
So sentient singularity theory has...
I would say
what are
it's
called the four
wrong
stages
to
of sentience.
distinguish us
Theory
from
has,
animals. We are animals.
What are called the four So sentient singularity theory has what are called the four stages of sentience, which actually each one of those is a superposition that breaks down into two parts of the has two sides of that coin. And it kind
That's not what a superposition
solves the
is.
problem that panpsychism suffers from. And there's this issue where you have things like, I don't know, flashlights or water bottles or whatever. And we look at that and we're like, that's not a sentient being. And panpsychists will say everything is sentient. But materialists will say water bottle is not sentient. And they're both right. Everything, all is God and is sentient. But that water bottle is not. But there is a lineage of sentience within sentient singularity theory. And my work implies or seems to imply that the first sentient beings in this lineage would be hadrons, like protons and neutrons. And then it would go to atoms, and then at least certain molecules, maybe not all, but maybe all. I'm still working on that exactly. And then
What?
That would go.
Hold on. Wait. So an atom, less than that, a proton and a neutron are sentient, but not all molecules are sentient. Is that what he's saying?
You know how like the idea of things being greater than the sum of their parts? Well, in this case, certain molecules, he's probably like, I'm assuming maybe he just really mad at boron or something. And, and he's like, it's less than the sum of its parts. Boron is dumber than the fucking particles that make up the boron molecule.
Everything is sentient except fucking boron. Can't fucking stand boron. Oxygen? Sentient. Neon? Sentient. Boron? Fuck that. That shit is inanimate and garbage.
Go to cells. That would go to organisms. And at least...
What about a borosilicate? If you throw some silicon and some oxygen in there, does that make it sentient? I think that's what a borosilicate is. Boron, silicon, and oxygen.
Families or lineages, you could say. But it's a lineage of sexual reproduction. And then... that I'm
I don't know if this guy knows this, but atoms don't sexually reproduce.
I also don't know if Tyler Goldstein sexually reproduces, to be perfectly honest. I certainly hope not.
So like if it has to have the lineage of sexual reproduction, I don't know, maybe I misheard him, but if the lineage of sexual reproduction is involved in this, then atoms are not sentient, because atoms do not, I mean, unless you're talking about like a collection of atoms can sexually reproduce with another collection of atoms, but the atoms themselves aren't fucking each other. Atoms don't have genitals.
I don't even know if we're allowed to show.
That may be boron.
Even if atoms could fuck each other, would that be TOS to try to show it on stream?
Probably not.
Castes and to then you could say nation, but it's really like all, and it's technology. It just
a nation is sentient
but technology is the last one. But it's that once we do
Technology
reach
is
that, there's also
sentient.
this unification that happens with everything within it. So, but each one of these alternates. So hadrons maneuver in relationship with each other. Atoms maneuver through a lineage structure. Then molecules maneuver through relationships with each other. And then
Okay, what about bosons?
cells
Bosons don't
maneuver through
interact with
lineage
each other.
structure because they're just replicating. That's what atoms do too.
Like two
start with
photons
with
can pass
hydrogen and
right
it
through
goes,
each other. Are they
through
sentient?
the elements through a lineage. You can't. They don't form separately. You start with hydrogen, and that's a lineage structure. And then it goes to organisms that are reproduce sexually. They maneuver through relationships with each other, just like protons and neutrons and molecules. And then you go to
That is not.
with
No,
humans
that's.
through a
Hold on a
lineage.
second. Wrong. Incorrect. Very much incorrect. The way that the way that atoms and molecules interact with each other is through fundamental forces. They interact with each other through like the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, electromagnetism, and gravity. The way humans interact with each other or animals interact with each other is very different. I mean, yes, technically it's all ultimately those forces, but you know, buying a ticket on an airplane and then flying on that airplane is an interaction between humans that atoms don't participate in.
Well,
There's no little atom airplanes flying other atoms around your room.
okay, yeah, that's fair enough. But I think we could have just like summed that up with protons and neutrons and atoms don't actually fuck to reproduce. They just don't. they don't tend to reproduce at all. Actually,
We could title this episode "Protons Don't Fuck."
well, who boffed the proton?
then casts maneuver in relationship with each other, and then you get to technology, and that maneuvers again through a lineage by creating another universe within itself, essentially. So, or self-simulating, but it's recreation. It's not really simulation. It's more like a baby in a womb is not a simulation of a human being. It's an additional. So, but this process, I believe, corresponds with what is called Bott periodicity in mathematics. I'm not sure about that yet, but I'm pretty confident that that's the case. And
Okay. But before we get into the mathematics, I think it's a good segue into the next two, and there's three left. But the next two things are the when and the where. So when you're talking about physical things like atoms and so on,
always and everywhere.
maneuvering and forming, it strongly implies time, the fluidity of matter and so on, and space, because these are physical things that exist in a sort of construct. So how do you explain space-time in sentient singularity theory?
so there's two different perspectives that you can kind of take on time that have been discussed in this line of thinking and fundamental theories lately. And one of them is the traditional space-time kind of arrow of time, and at least how it appears to us. And that comes into play in sentient singularity theory due to the relationships between the nested and interacting sentient beings. So space-time comes from the perception of space-time, let's say, comes from the interaction between the dimensions of mind of this nested and interacting lineage of sentient beings. So in sentient singularity theory, you have four-dimensional mind, and so imagine the universe is a sentient being, and inside the universe is us, and we observe space-time as there's a few different ways you can say it. You could say X, Y, Z and time, or length, width, height, and time. But you can also say forwards towards the goal, backwards away from your goal, and you're always in your current, your present moment, or your present.
You could also say port side, starboard, aft, and fore.
You could even just say that way or the other way.
You could say north, east, west, and south. How many other ways are there to say, directions in space?
Right. There's only like three. Yeah. There's only three dimensions that we can move our hand in.
Yeah.
So I'll interject right there just for a second, because you already started using the word universe, and then you went straight to our perception of time. Now, is that universe that we exist in space-time, or
I was going to that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
No, you weren't.
So we have these four dimensions of space-time that we perceive. The universe also, because it's a mind and it has these four,
like a galaxy brain,
perspectives that are what's leading to the perception of four.
Wait, is universe mind like the next stage after galaxy brain?
No, you forgot galaxy cluster head.
I would just call it cluster head.
Time. It also perceives four dimensions, but it perceives it in reverse. So instead of perceiving space-time, it perceives what I call time-space, which is just the reverse. And so each one of these, when you take these four dimensions, it has 2 degrees of freedom plus 1 intrinsic constraint plus 1 extrinsic constraint. And so for us, the 2 degrees of freedom would be like forwards and backwards, and then our intrinsic constraint is that we're always in our present position, and our extrinsic constraint is time, because we don't have any control over it. We're in it. For the universe,
I can also move left and right, though.
I believe.
Well, I mean, his universe is like a platform game.
It's not even a platform game. He can only move forward and backward.
Yeah,
Mario can go up and down.
Oh shit, you're right.
Essentially, it's the highest being that is created.
How do you create a reality where you can only move forward and backwards?
Is that it has 4 dimensions as well, and it also has 2 degrees of freedom plus an intrinsic constraint and an extrinsic constraint. Its 2 degrees of freedom are forwards and backwards in how it entangles relationships in time, because it perceives things simultaneously. And it has also an intrinsic constraint of it's always in the present moment, because it perceives things simultaneously, and no one can escape the present, not even the universe. And its extrinsic constraint is space, just like our extrinsic constraint is time, because we can't control it. Its extrinsic constraint is space, because it is space.
But wait, then it can control time?
It just is space.
He just said it couldn't control time, but then he also said it can't control space. I'm confused.
I mean, I think he's winging it.
Which one is it?
I think he's winging it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's never thought about these things before.
I don't think he's really thought this through.
No, he hasn't.
So
I'd be really interested to ask him, like, just how do you explain gravity? Just like, this is a theory of everything, right? How do you explain gravity?
It maneuvers in what we call time, but there's another side to time that's being discussed now, and by people like Lee Cronin, and it's also implied by my work. That's it's not the arrow of time as far as a perception of that we have. It's
the spinning hard disk of time,
which is about the entanglement relationships that are built into a specific moment. So you and me being here right now is a specific state of entanglement that the universe is in. And that is how...
Wouldn't it be great if James was like, no, it's not, and he hung up?
Perceives time is through an entanglement state. So
you know how this show, speaking of time, you know how this show's supposed to be an hour? Well, this week it's going to be an hour, because I can't fucking take any more of this.
This was great. I love this guy. He's so funny.
Tila Tequila is going to be like,
don't ever call me again.
It's so funny because like he's not thought about like any of the implications of his own theory of everything, quote unquote. Like he hasn't thought it at all about like what are the questions that people would ask if I'm supposedly creating this theory.
Are you sure? I mean, look at these drawings.
I mean, I feel like I'm looking at Excel spreadsheets. Is it a theory of Excel?
Oh my God. Yo, yeah, I just can't. I know the show's supposed to be an hour, and usually the only reason it's an hour is the reason it's an hour tonight is just because I'm just like, no more. I can't, we cannot possibly fucking do any more of this.
See, I love that. I loved this interview. This was fantastic. This kind of, what would you call it? Like it's a kind of ignorance that's like very confident.
It's Weinsteinian.
Yeah, it's very Weinsteinian. Yeah,
without the big following and the Peter Thiel paychecks.
Yeah, it's fucking great. I love it.
So, I would ask what we learned, but nothing.
What did we unlearn today?
I had to check and make sure like brain matter wasn't leaking out of my ear while the guy was talking.
What information fell out the other side while that was being crammed in?
Well, I mean, that was it. I'll read the show out this week. Thanks everybody for tuning into that. I don't know how, if you're listening to the podcast, you got to the end of this show, but if you did, I'm proud of you. You can help us out. Just go to echoplexmedia.com, click that support tab, and always share this show with your friends. Maybe not this particular episode, but share the show with your friends. That was Tyler Goldstein. His channel is called The Theory of Everyone, and against my better judgment, I suggest people check it out because we've definitely watched him late at night on this channel and had a pretty good time. Also, go on Twitter and ask him some questions because he'll block you. Check out all his diagrams. They're amazing. I'll try to remember to put links to his work in the show notes. During the show, we had Comrade Pesci followed us. Also, Bonds Arcade followed us. Thank you for that. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're following us, twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. We're going to go on into Red Light. This is Boomers by Periscope. And fuck, I've never needed to drink so much in my entire life.